Going back to the museum, and one of the most popular exhibits, I'd imagine, would have been the skeleton of Joan Whyte
Yeah.
that you had here. Can you just tell us a bit about what made you try and get in contact with her? And
Right.
then,
Well, it started off when we took the museum on. Joan was hung by a bolt through her head in a coffin vertically, and we thought this was just a bit unattractive and maybe disrespectful. So the first thing we did is we laid her coffin on its side and put some dried flowers in with her and put her on a little pillow and just made her a bit more comfortable and put a more respectful display around her. And we were happier with that, and we felt she was happier with it. But that didn't last for long. Kids would go up and they'd be going, "Ugh, a skeleton," you know. And one July, which must have been 4 years ago now, we'd gone upstairs and the lid to Joan's coffin was shut. Now, this is quite remarkable because the coffin was screwed down and the lid was tied up with coat hanger wire. You know, this is serious. All behind glass, which is nailed in, all the glasses. So, you know, something was going on there and we were getting messages. So that was the height of the season, a lot of people around, and so we started talking to her a little bit and saying, right, you know, we'll have a chat with you over winter and we're going to change things. And she was well behaved then. And then Samhain that year we got together with Cassandra Latham and some other well-known local witches, and we actually cast Joan in our circle. She's you know, it's an odd thing to do, you know, it's quite scary actually. And we asked her what she wanted, and numerous things came through, but the main outcome was that we decided to bury her, and that's what she wanted, so that's what we did. And in fact that took another year. We brought her in, then we didn't display her that year. And then the next Samhain we took her to bits because she was tied together with bits of wire and little brackets and hinges, and that was a big job. And we made a basket out of hazel and willow, and we wove that, lined it with a fleece from a local sheep, and went up to the woods at midnight and dark of the moon and buried her. And there was a hell of a storm. It was a dark and stormy night, but it really was. And it was we can laugh at it now, but trying to dig a hole in the woods illegally, because we couldn't get permission from the landowner to do this, so we did it anyhow. But
so he's now aware of what you've done, because you said you've got a marker.
Right, yes, it's actually on National Trust land. And we've come to a compromise. We told them well after we'd done it what we'd done, and we've given them, we've told them that it's in this general area, so nobody knows exactly where it is apart from the three of us that did it. But yeah, it was a night we'll never forget. But this year, I mean, well, last year now, year 2000, we put a headstone up there, just saying near this place is buried Joan. And the way we got over any of the legal problems is we put it near, it's within a few hundred yards of where she's buried, and we put it right up against the church boundary. And I had words with the vicar, who said that'll be all right, they'll think it's my land. I had words with the trust, and they said, well, we'll claim it's church land. So it's really in a bit of no man's land. And yeah, it's in a nice location. It's up near Minster Church, if you know.
All right. And have things quietened down since she's been?
Yeah, we've had no problems since she's gone. I actually had her under my bed for a long while, because we were trying to find somewhere nice for her to be. We didn't want to stick her in the workshop, so so I was sleeping with her. We also had Harry, what we call Harry, which is the tarred skull downstairs. The first year, myself and Liz had him on our bedside table when people thought we were a little strange. A
lot of the exhibits are of poppets and objects that have been used for spell casting and what have you, which probably isn't the nicer side of witchcraft. Could any of these still have magic attached to them, or are they all?
Yeah, no, there's no question. It's interesting. Something I'll just pick you up on something you said there. You said a lot of the exhibits at Poppets and such like. Now, it's interesting how, in fact, it's only a very small percentage of Poppets, but they are so powerful. People notice them, and they just they grab people's imagination. Everybody comes away remembering the Poppets and the curses. Yeah, they are powerful things. There's when we had to rewire the museum when we first came here, and we had to take everything out, index it, stick it in a box and put it away. And we had real problems with the Poppets. We in fact did a binding ritual. Again, Cassandra came and helped us with that. We felt it was probably beyond us. We didn't want to do a banishing. We could have banished everything, killed everything stone dead. But I think that would have left a very cold, dead display. And some of those Poppets are really horrible. You know, there's human pubic hair sewn in them and things, a lot of hatred. And we want people to pick up on this. We don't want to frighten people, but we want people to think about this and realise that magic works. And you can definitely pick up on it. If you stand in front of that display, you know, you can feel some of this hatred. And we that's what we want. That's a museum doing its purpose, serving its purpose. But we've recently, I mean, just last week we had them all out. We've just redone that display, and I went in and had a word with them. We treat them like naughty children, you know. And we used to sleep above them, and the banging and crashing at night was dreadful. And you'd have to go down and tell them off, and things would settle. And just recently we took them all out. We spoke to them first. We put them all in boxes with mirrors on, and they were fine for a few days, but they certainly started playing up again after they felt that they weren't, you know, didn't like being in their boxes.
So say someone, an unsuspecting member of the public, sort of found something like that, I mean, could it harm them, or would it just harm the person that they were aimed at?
Magic will, yeah, and I understand the question, magic will work in all sorts of ways. Generally, with Poppets, they would be specific to a person. Not always. It can be to a household, an area, a village, but generally it would be to a person. And yes, it will only harm that person. But of course, if you find something like that, it's a scary thing to find. And then psychology and people's imaginations run away, so people can get quite disturbed. And we're often asked if we can help out in instances like that. And you know, you could almost do anything really, because quite often it's the people's own fear that's the problem. So if you go in and tell them that you're doing a little banishing, and go and do a banishing, you know, they will feel better and it will work, if you follow my logic.
So you still do get exhibits that come your way, so your home museum is sort of constantly sort of growing.
Yeah, in fact, it's rather overtaking my flat. It's growing by the day. A lot of stuff coming in. Recently, of course, unfortunately, Cecil Williamson died, and we ended up acquiring quite a lot of his collection that wasn't exhibited, his personal collection. We also have just acquired a fascinating collection of ritual magic, regalia and odds and ends from Holland. A chap called Bob Richel died and left us a collection. We're in a lot of people's wills. You can imagine solitary witches. They're very concerned about what happens to their artefacts after they go. And if they haven't got a coven or craft brothers and sisters to leave them to, they'll leave them to us, because they'll know at least they'll find a good home here.
You were talking earlier that you go out to the stone circles locally and do your own rituals.
Yeah.
And St Nectan's Glen as well.
I've done quite a bit of work at St Nectan's. I like it. Nice healing place. Right. And difficult to do any group work there because it's so noisy.
Right.
But I love it. I love St Nectan's and the Labyrinth site as well. Yeah. It's a good entrance to another world, that place. And I think maybe Labyrinths always do that. Right. I think maybe they mark gateways to other worlds. You find them in Chartres Cathedral, and there's a lovely one just outside Winchester, St Catherine's Hill, which is a very otherworldly place as well. So yeah.
Yes, that crops up in Andy Collins's Psychic Questing book that I was reading recently, and yeah, it's interesting. What else I can say? Obviously Boscastle has become attached with this, not I say witchcraft, but pagan,
mystical.
Yes, yeah. And you said earlier that the housing prices are sort of soaring. Yeah. Is it a lot of people coming here that have a pagan leaning, or is it?
Well, let's tackle the first bit of the question first. Certainly, it's a very magical place. I don't think there's any question. You chaps should all be fairly sensitive to that. You know, you can feel it. As you're driving down that road into Boscastle, you know you're coming somewhere special. It's not just that it's pretty, it really is magical. It's a great place for working magic. Very elemental. And, you know, you don't have to be a good witch to walk out on those cliffs and do magic. Sure. You know, everything's here that's going to help you. And, you know, with Tintagel down the road and all of that as well. So it is a very magical, mystical place. It's inherent in the rocks and stones, the layout. Something makes it magical. Yes, it does attract a lot of people with an interest, and the whole area does. Boscastle it's got its own spirit, its own mind, and it selects and rejects people. Right. You know, I've been here 5 years, and I hope that I'm one of the selected few, but I've seen people come and go in that time where they've come in, they've not fitted, and the village, no individuals or anything, but the village has persuaded them to leave again. So it's got its own will, Boscastle.
Something that I was talking about with Kim and Anthony, they were talking about joining the Pagan Federation and what have you. So obviously if you've got a lot of people concentrating in one area that are interested in this side of things and want to do rituals, you're obviously all not part of the same coven or whatever, but how, as you're like kind of limited to the sites you've got here, and obviously you've got specific days when you want to do rituals, it's just something that crossed my mind. How do you sort of decide who's going to go to what
you let
site?
The gods decide, really. I mean, there's so many sites, to be honest. You know, I mean, you know of Stan and Stone Circle, and a few of the stone circles are close. We've got the Labyrinths, we've got Rocky Bay, but you know, they're not the sites we usually use. You know, I'll be up on the cliffs up here or in the woods. I tend to work on my own. There are groups work. Pagan Federation used to have group rituals. The people that have organised that moved out now, but used to have group rituals at St Nectan's. So we don't normally have clashes.
It's because Kim and Anthony, they obviously been new to the area. They went up to Dartmoor, and they went to stone circles, and they found that people were already there, and so they sort of moved on. It just crossed my mind that if you have got this sort of, you know, you want to do your own thing, you don't want to get involved with somebody else. Yeah,
although you know, we're talking about this being a sort of concentration, and the numbers of pagans here, because the populations are so much smaller, you know, there's not a vast number of pagans or Wiccans in the area, you know, handfuls. You know, if you went to South London, you'd find an awful lot more. So it's not really proved a problem.
So they were in South London. Then where sort of would they go to? Because there's not a lot around that way, or is there?
Yeah, I mean South London. Yeah, I've you know, I know a nice stone circle set out in somebody's back garden in Kew. You know, plenty of sites that, you know, and Wimbledon. You know.
Again, going back to the museum itself, is there any particular exhibit that you're particularly fond of, or just like the whole?
You know, I like the scrying display, and I particularly like Cecil's scrying mirror, Cecil's dark mirror. It touches people that know nothing about magic. I love walking up there quietly and hearing sceptical people, just seeing them transfixed in front of this thing and saying, "Oh, you know," and talking to people. They have strange experiences. They see things in that. It's a very wonderful mirror. It was set up on a little kiddie's easel in Cecil's library. He obviously was using it on a regular basis. Wonderful thing.
Have you used it?
Yeah, I've used it. Yeah, it's quite it's really special. But the whole of that display is special. I like scrying. I think is a nice, witchy thing to do, and it just works well in a museum. I think it actually affects people. It's like the Poppets scare them a bit. That scrying display enchants them because they see a mirror there, and in practical terms, it's a mirror that doesn't work very well. It's a bit black, but you watch them get entranced, get caught up in that magic of it.
And also on some of the exhibits you've got the chanting and the singing. Is that something you've put together yourself?
It is actually, yeah. We just we put it together as a soundtrack for the museum.
Right.
And so many people were asking for it, we released it as a CD.
Right.
And we just made another one.
Right.
Plug.
Yeah.
It's not out till the summer, but chanting too.
Okay.
Anything else? No.
Okay.
Thank you. Would you just like to tell us a bit about how you first came into your interest in witchcraft and how you came to live here at the Witchcraft Museum?
Well, I've had an interest in witchcraft for a long while, and folklore it started really. Folk song, morris dancing, stone circles. But the museum came after I had a fairly big lifestyle change. I ran a company, a manufacturing company, making cameras, and I ended up doing all the things I don't enjoy doing really. A lot of flying around the world and a lot of jet setting, which isn't me. And I'd come back from the States one day, totally fed up, and decided to get out on the hills and have a walk. And I went up to Tan Hill, it's a beautiful area up near Avebury, and met a group of travellers called the Dongas tribe up there. Wonderful people, very ethical, Wiccans, pagans, all using horse-drawn vehicles and things. Lovely crowd. And I really enjoyed the way they celebrated Lammas, it was at the time, and they didn't just do a ritual, they were celebrating it. They were dancing naked as the sun came up and really enjoying it. And I spent a few days with them, and it really changed me. I went back and thought about things, put my house on the market, sold the Jag, sold my business, and was just going to go off and do a bit of travelling and reflecting. But at the same time, the museum came on the market, and a friend of mine spotted an advert for it and said, "You really should go and do that, Graham. It's you." And the rest of it's history. I actually bought it on...
Oops.
It's all right. It's all right. I needed a chain.
All right.
Carry on.
I actually bought the museum at midnight on Halloween. I was selling at midnight. The solicitors didn't like it.
Right.
It had to be done.
And then it was a year later that you were doing your ritual with Joan.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, because we came down here that Halloween, and you were just contemplating the idea of doing it.
Right.
And then we were so interested that we came back the following year to find out how you'd got on.
Right. Yeah.
And,
Everything's happened on Halloween every year.
Right.
So it was the decision was made at Halloween.
Yeah.
The burial, the contacting her was Halloween.
Right.
The burial was, and the erecting of the memorial was. So it's been a 4-year process.
But we like to feel as though we were, played a little part in that.
Absolutely.
That going on, because we were here both those times.
Good. Oh, I am pleased. And I hope you'll go up and lay some flowers at
Yes.
that stone. Yeah.